12 years of experience in the logistics industry, and you have real extensive experience around customers. So really looking forward to your insights in today's session. Also today we have joining the panel Miss Anjali Valayudan Menon. She's the Human Resources Director from Friesland Campina in Malaysia. Welcome, Anjali.
Thank you, Lauren. It's my pleasure to be here. I look forward to this discussion to share and learn from the participants and fellow panelists as well.
Fantastic, Anjali. And Anjali, I noticed that you talk about your purpose being the catalyst for curiosity, learning and sustainable growth for people, organisations, communities and our planet. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your insights, as I'm sure the audience is today as well. Okay, next on our panel, we have Miss Vasila Maturari Alina. Apologies if I'm saying that very wrong. She's the head of People Journey from PT Amartha Micro FinTech in Indonesia. Welcome, Vasila.
Thank you, Lauren. Grateful to be here. Looking forward to learn from you all.
And we're really looking forward to hearing your insights. I hear that you have a Bachelor of Law, and after becoming a legal counsel, you decided to follow your calling into the people and culture lead. Looking forward to hearing your insights, particularly around transforming our mindsets. Great to have you on board, Vasila.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, we have Mr. Francisco Nino Sevilla, HR Director from Everrise. Now, I know that you like to be called Kiko. Have I got that right? Yes? Well, yes, welcome.
That's correct.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited about our collaboration today.
And very excited to have you on the panel. You work for Everrise, which is an award-winning healthcare customer services and CRM, and you've almost had, I think, about 20 years experience. But one of the things that really jumped out at me looking at your background is you also are the author of Conversations with Kiko. So really great to be having this conversation with you today. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm pretty excited. I'm not sure about the rest of the audience about the fantastic panel we have today, really to start talking about what's behind this so-called big quit and what can we do as leaders. So in a recent Harvard Business Review article, they said that there was a widening mismatch between the job environment in what employees want and what employees now expect, as opposed to what employees currently have. Now, this may explain why so many workers have been quitting their jobs and why companies are having trouble filling the millions of current openings. So, Kiko, I might kick off with you. What do you think? Why do you think people are quitting, and how do you think the business should or could respond?
I think the important keyword that you mentioned there was work environment, right? We all know that in the last 3 years, the work landscape has definitely changed because of the pandemic, right? So it has driven organizations to plan accordingly because the way people work have been more mobile, have been more fast-paced, right? And companies have tried keeping up with it. So I think that's a critical factor that's affecting the Great Resignation that we call right now, because everyone's just looking out for an opportunity or a job that fits their requirements now that they're able to work from home. Work requirements that will enable them to feel safe and well taken care of. Work opportunities that would allow them to have a work-life balance that will ultimately benefit their mental health. So I think these are the key areas as well that organizations can look into right now, because this will definitely impact the way they do business as well in the future.
Fantastic, Kiko. So really thinking about how you're really doing business into the future and really looking at a way at how are you pivoting away from business as usual in these very uncertain times. I might throw to Anjali. You know, we're pivoting away from business as usual. You know, what are your insights? What are some of the things that you've experienced in this space?
You know, I think from a business perspective, what has happened of course, COVID has put everybody into a spin. I come from a very traditional industry. I've worked in food and beverages for most of my career. And it was one of the most stable sectors which was there. And suddenly we were in a situation where we were not able to look at 1 to 3 to 5 year plans. I think that was the business as usual. You have big business plans which stretch over 3 to 5 period. You have very standard processes and systems set up, and you have principles and guidelines and values which govern you. And now we were in a situation where everything is changing every 3 to 4 months. And employee preferences and asks are very different, because on one hand, you have a certain section of employees who are working on the field, and one hand you have in factory, and there are certain people who are based in office who can be very much hybrid. So the employee, these set of portfolios were competing or being part of a talent pool in different aspects, because a population which is hybrid, they are being, the talent pool comes from everywhere, from every sector. So the sector boundaries started vanishing. But the talent pool which comes in a manufacturing setup, in a factory, or say in a field force, usually from a similar sector. So what do we do, and how do we address these differences without being, without appearing not equitable? So
Anjali,
yeah, sorry.
Anjali, quick question, and apologies to, so these are kind of some of the challenges. What if so give us some examples around how Friesland Campina has actually dealt with those over the last kind of while.
Yes, so that's what I was moving to, just to finish off. When you have these 3 sections of employee population, which is not working in a business as usual context, the challenge was, how do we maintain equity? And that's when we set up principles called as our ways of working as an organization globally, where we clarified, if you are belonging to a certain part of population, if it's manufacturing, how do we incentivize people coming to the factory every day? If you're a sales force, how do we incentivize the hardship you're going through by going outside, because your exposure is higher? So there is an element of hardship which you need to recognize, and you put in incentives in place, which are in terms of monetary as well as in terms of benefits. That was one piece, and we put that in place. And the hybrid population, of course, there's a part of saying we let them come to office for, say, 2 days in a week, and 3 days they work from home. So there is a differentiation, but there is transparency in communication, and there is an acknowledgement of the hardship and incentives put in place. It needs a constant revamp, because what we keep on doing is we keep on taking feedback from employees every 6 months in terms of what is the expectation. What we also had to do is we had to build in very strong well-being initiatives. Francisco spoke about safety. So we focused on both aspects of safety, psychological safety, as well as well-being in terms of physical safety and health and wellness. So creating that was useful, because people feel, and that's what people are seeking. They're seeking organizations which care. And you have to demonstrate that consistently.
So Anjali, really one of the things that's come up a lot, it doesn't matter which country you're in, and I think we've got over 15 countries represented in our audience today. But one of the global things, with the pivot of the moving from business as usual, is that people are actually struggling right now overall. So really things like illness, financial instability, Zoom fatigue are really real in this new environment. And those targets, as you said, those targets and standards that were previously set are different ones. So you've got to respond differently, like you have, in terms of how you're incentivizing those groups. The thing around this is that there's a bit of a code. They say the code to stop driving people who are on the brink in this space and providing them those supports that you were talking about. I might kick to Kiko here. How has it played out in terms of the pivot away from business as usual for you?
So for us, how it has pivoted away is in terms of so as I said, on the well-being aspect,
Yeah.
Because the only thing we were doing before was focusing on providing a health plan. You have a third-party provider, you have a medical policy, which is more reactive. Now, what we are doing is we are focusing on proactive wellness, and we are doing a physical and mental health check. So we do both the assessments, and we are providing employee support in terms of counseling as well as coaching services much more proactively. Even the health checkup, it was in a situation where people had an option. You have a certain amount of entitlement, you claim it, you go for it and claim it. What we did is we bought it in premises. So in our premises, even in the factory and our head office sales, we're bringing the healthcare professionals to do a health checkup, which at least takes care of the basics in terms of, because what COVID did, and Lauren, you're absolutely right, it created more health issues in terms of cardiac issues, in terms of cholesterol, high blood pressure, stress-induced problems. So we are getting those tests then on site. And for employees, the thing was, it is free. It takes 15 minutes of your time. You just walk in, you do those tests, and you get a report. And what we are also doing is we are going organization health assessment. So we not only have an employee engagement survey, which feeds into our action plans, we also have an organization health assessment, which tells us which functions have higher levels of stress or stress-related health issues. Of course, we are careful about the data privacy, so we do not identify individuals. It's quite clear. It's a consolidated data. So that's how we are trying to address. And this is complete pivoting of business as usual, because this is not what we were doing, organization well-being and health diagnostic.
So really kind of that culture of caring is something that becomes really important. Francisco, I might throw to you, because you were talking about, you know, in the Philippines and in the environment that you've worked in, this pivot has also, from business as usual, has also been quite marked. Do you want to share some commentary and any comments related to some of the comments that Anjali made there?
Yeah, definitely it's the same. You know, the thing about the pandemic is that it changed everything for everyone, right? No one was spared. Regardless of which country you're part of, regardless of what the nature of your industry is, or what the culture is in the organization, everything had to change because of what happened, right? And in addition to what was mentioned, I think the key focus really here that we've been doing in Everrise is about taking good care of our people. Also, in parallel, we make sure that we have a focus on the mental health of our employees, not just providing counseling services, not just ensuring that they go through their annual medical checkups, not just providing vaccines for them and their dependents and their family members or whoever they live with, but also encouraging conversations in the workplace. Because now we don't see each other that often, and we interact online or in various online platforms. So how do we maintain that touch? How do we maintain that influence and connection with our employees despite of the distance? So we create more conversations so we can talk together, not just talk about work, not just talk about performance, but talk about what are the things that are really important to them. What's hindering them from becoming successful at work? What's hindering them from being able to fulfill their roles and responsibilities in the workplace, given the current situation? So there's a large investment on that, and there's a large investment or attention as well in more communication, more ways where people can provide their feedback, more platform where they can ask questions. So these have been our key focus areas in Everrise, just so that we can meet the demands and the needs of our employees during this time.
So a common theme I'm hearing here is, with this pivot, that this culture, or creating a culture of caring, is really, really important. Tian Long, your views, the culture of caring, is that just a kind of a nice thing that I'm talking about, or is it something that you're experiencing, such as, Francisco in the Philippines? How's that playing out in Thailand?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Lorraine, for the question. Caring has always been a big part of FedEx. Our philosophy is people, service, profit, in that order, that we need to take care of our people first. In the service industry, right, we need to make sure our employees feel engaged before they put in that discretionary effort to deliver the best service for our customers. So that is nothing new for us. So we had yearly surveys with our employees to get feedback. I think what was important to ensure the caring, and to Francisco's point, I do not have one HR manager or one HR team. At FedEx, we believe that all 50 managers that I have in Thailand, they are all HR managers. It's their job to make sure that they understand the challenges that their team is facing and feedback to me what support is needed. So I think to the point of caring, you really need to open your ears. And that includes me. I think they are every quarter, right? During Zoom fatigue, I definitely have Zoom fatigue. I think I had 10 sessions in 2 days to try to engage all 1,400 employees, right? Break it so that it's a smaller group. They can feel they can reach out to me. It versus that time I can travel to all the individual branches to meet them. We still need to create a platform for them to voice out, and really hear the concerns, whether it's their personal or something the company could do. So I think caring is very important, and listening to the employees. I think that's fundamental, that they know we're here to pay attention to their needs. So I think that's the cornerstone of our success.
100%. And I think, some of the themes coming out here is being a good leader isn't just about results and more customers or sales or, more product. It's really about, caring about people. And I know that sounds really obvious, to a lot of people, that sounds really obvious. But now it's much more important that every leader must communicate that they care about people. Fasela, over to you. We've moved from Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Indonesia, and we will jump back again for some more input from everybody. But your views, this culture of caring, what do you think?
Yeah, agree what the panelists said before, that also in Amarta, we believe that when people feel safe in their working environment, they will be more productive. That's why in Amarta, one of our main goals is to create a culture of caring. When people feel safe to express themselves and they know that it's okay to bring forward their concerns, feedback, even vulnerabilities, ideas, and creativity. And this culture of caring will not happen without the involvement and support from all leaders, right? So in Amarta, we encourage all leaders to have monthly one-on-one sessions, as Mr. Francisco said before, with the team, not only to talk about work and targets or goals, but also to talk about their personal lives. Being a good leader means caring about people as human beings, and caring is about action, right? Not just words. So it is how the leaders handle the situations within the team when there is a challenge, and how they can be role models and partners instead of just giving instructions. And we also encourage all the leaders to spend their time to listening to their concern and feedback and respond the concern with maturity and genuine care. It's also how the leaders can build mutual trust within the team, especially when this work from home arrangement, you cannot see your teammate physically, right? So trust is very, very important. You need to trust each other. And we believe when the trust is built, it creates loyalty. And it is what makes great people stay and willing to do the extra mile, when there is trust and loyalty within the team.
So it's really interesting. I mean, we're talking about concepts now around inclusive leadership. We're talking about concepts around psychological safety in the workplace, and how do you, provide that. And Tien Lung was actually talking about one of those things, which is actually the listening. So, really being able to feel safe so that people can bring their concerns, because they also know that they'll be acted upon, which goes to that trust, Fasela, that you were talking about. I'm just going to jump into, Anjali, you were talking about wellness. You were talking about wellness earlier. And a HRB article said, good bosses create more wellness than wellness plans do. So when people have a good relationship with their leaders, right, so they have that trust that we were talking about, trust creates loyalty, and it also provides that psychological safety that you were talking about, Fasela. Now, we're in extraordinary times, right? We need people to feel safe in their work environment and, show up to really feel that they can actually kind of make a difference. And then we talk about engagement. So all of those things that we talk about engagement, you know, Gallup's survey says employees want more from their managers. So caring means that you get more. And among employees who strongly agree that they can approach their manager with any type of question, 54% are engaged. When employees strongly disagree, only 2% are engaged, and 65% are actively disengaged. So the ability, you know, that listening that Tien Long was talking about. Tien Long, can I ask you a question? So
Sure.
What do you think? So you were talking about, you know, you're telling your managers that they need to come back to you. They're telling, you know, you're listening. Can you give us examples about, you know, where that you know, you've found that there have been managers who aren't listening, or there have been managers who have, and how it's made a difference?
Yeah. So when you look at it, when I have 50 managers, you know, they're not going to take all the same approach when it comes to things, right? There's rules and guidelines, and then some will enforce stricter than the other. So one of the things was level set between the managers. So I can see the flexibility. Different teams are giving different level of flexibility when it comes to like who gets to work from home. So when you gather some of those feedback, you actually sit down and say, okay, why do you hear it from this manner? Why are you feeling that this person can only work from home, whilst someone doing a similar job under a different manager in a different branch is able to work from home? So it's really paying attention to that, and then I see how they interpret the rules and regulations. So let me sidetrack a bit, not just COVID itself. Sometime last year, and this is where I say that you need to take empathy and listen. And one of my managers who actually, one of the head of department said that she needed time off on the second half of the day. And if you think about it, she told me that actually her pet was not doing too well. Now, in our policy, it's always a kid and, you know, it's a family member. And of course, if you look at the policy, it's not going to tell you that you could take time off for your pet. But I know that that means a lot to her. And I said, yes, please take the second half of the day off and go handle what you need to handle. I think that's the fundamental, you know, description of what is listening to what your employee is telling you. She's going to have a very bad day if I tell her, please finish up whatever work you need to finish today. But I know that can wait. Right, so I told her you take the rest of half of the day off. It's not in any of the policy hard and fast rule, but you listen to it and then you make a judgment call.
So question for you, Tien Long. What do you think would have happened if you said no?
Well,
generally,
I think that's a good question. I think the employee will feel that, you know, being a little bit unreasonable. Not maybe unreasonable. I mean, I feel that there's a bit more you can go above and beyond for me. You know, the fact is that the employee might end up saying, okay, it's 6 p.m. sharp. Whatever work I have not finished, it's 6 p.m. It's off time. I'll stop. Right? We want the discretionary effort of employees to spend a bit time longer to complete the work. You know, they will stop doing all those. You know, so it's pretty simple. They'll be calculative as well.
So that discretionary effort will go. Kiko, question. Creating a culture of caring. Talk to me. What do you think?
Well, there is a philosophy in Everrise. We always say that in everything that we do, we always prioritize our people first, right? Of course, during the onset of discussion, we have been talking about how we take good care of all of our employees in general, right? But based on what Tien also mentioned earlier, I think it's important for us, equally important for us, to take good care of our leaders as well, because your leaders are your connection to the people, right? They're the ones bridging the organization to the people. So it's important for us that if we want to care for everyone, we have to care for our leaders first. Sometimes we have the misconception that because they're leaders, they know what to do. They can survive on their own. But we fail to realize that leaders are employees and also are people, part of our people population at the end of the day. So we have to make sure that our leaders are also empowered to make the right decisions, empowered to navigate the complexity of the work from home environment. You have to prepare them as well to adapt to the change, right, of what the situation calls for right now. And we have to make sure that we prepare them and really provide what they need to be able to communicate with our employees. Because even if you have the most successful and comprehensive tools out there, if you don't have good leaders, equipped and empowered leaders to help you mobilize them, I think those will not work. So it's important as well to take good care of our leaders.
I just muted myself while I was coughing. So taking care of your leaders really is really important in terms of creating that culture of caring, because caring is about everybody in the workplace, and you know, your leaders are the ones that you're expecting all of these things for. I think the other thing we were talking about when we were looking at what are some of the things that you can do to respond to this pivot from business as usual was creating belonging at work, right? So making sure that your leaders feel that they belong, but also your staff. And many articles and columns have been written about diversity, equity, and inclusion lately. And we were talking about some of those things: psychological safety, inclusive leadership, etc. early. Belonging is that experience of being seen and heard and welcome with all who we are. So everybody needs to belong. A recent study found that 61% of people in the workplace are covering an aspect of who they are at work. And interestingly enough, the need to fit in can lead to what is called covering, when a person intentionally hides aspects of themselves in the workplace. And one of the things this environment has done has actually made it harder to do covering, because that blurring between work and life has occurred. Kiko, any comments around the belonging aspect?
Right. So earlier we're talking about safety, right? But we've been focusing our discussion on safety in terms of the health and wellness. But we also want to make sure that we have to create a safe environment for everyone so that they can express and be themselves, right? We have to make sure that safety is not just about the health side, but also safety for people to have a work environment that will respect them, that will nurture their talents, that will allow them to be able to communicate well, to be accepted, because these are important aspects of belongingness, right? When we set our organization goals every year, we tell them what we need to do, what we want them to impart or do so that we can meet their goals at the end of the day. But we also have to understand, like, what do they need to be able to deliver what we expect from them, right? And a big chunk of that aspect really comes from supporting them and enabling them so that they can bring their uniqueness at work, and how we can nurture when we collaborate or put together that whole level of uniqueness. That's where diversity and inclusion really comes in.
Fantastic, Kiko. So that whole concept of belonging may have been important previously, but now is kind of almost the differentiator and the thing that leaders must do. Fasela, you've talked about, the culture of caring. What about this culture of creating belonging at work that Kiko is talking about? Can you share with us your views and experiences?
Okay, agree with Mr. Kiko said before that monetary is essential. We have to ensure the primary needs like physical and mental health, but that's not the only thing. One of the most important things that we need to also focus on is strengthening the sense of belonging of our employees. What does it mean? This means that as a leaders and HR leaders, we need to create a working environment where people feel they belong. It is by making them feel that they are seen, heard, and understood, because everyone has a need to belong. So in Amarta this year, we shifted our engagement initiative to be more personal and relevant for each individual, to help them feel that they are part of this. We also collaborate with the leaders to show all employees that their feedback and insight matter by regularly conducting employee survey, monthly pulse check, focus group discussion, one-on-one. All of this just to hear them and gather information on what exactly is an effective engagement for them. And also, we're also following up those feedback by taking necessary action.
So Fasela, you talked about, tailoring your initiatives that are quite specific to what the individual needs. Can you give us an example? So give me a concrete example of what that might look like, or one initiative, how you did that.
Of course. For example, one of the findings that we found this year was that our team longed for face-to-face activities and deeper connection with their teammates. You know, after almost 2 years doing work from home and only seeing each other through our screens, it is challenging for us to have a connection with each other, especially for those who just joined the company in the last 2 years. So we began to conduct many new and improved initiatives that involve our employees to join physically and have a deeper connection with each other, like coffee time with the C-level. So we have an intimate session where 15 employees can talk anything with the C-levels. And then we also have Friday learning session with the leaders, where all employees can learn the favorite books from the leaders and learn together from it. We also provide an amount of budget every month and encourage the leaders to conduct the team engagement activities. It can be team dinner, karaoke night, sports day, or anything that they can do to express themselves, have fun, and at the same time know their teammates better. And for those who doesn't like to doing some activities, we make them feel seen by giving them personalized gift and care package that was delivered to their home.
So question for you, Priscilla. Did you do that prior to these 2 years? So giving the budget and all of those things that you're talking about?
We also we already have the budget, but we increase the budget more to become monthly. Before the pandemic, we have the budget for quarterly, but now we give them monthly, and we provide more engagement activities to be more personal.
Fantastic. Thanks, Priscilla. And Jali, examples from you in terms of this engagement piece where, that you did in Malaysia around, things you did differently as a result.
So I think I'll recognize with most of the speakers here as well. This year was an opportunity for everybody to accelerate on the engagement, but what we are looking at, two critical aspects was connection and collaboration. Because I think that what people were losing with this hybrid and varied setup was connection. And obviously it leads to various factors of isolation and lack of belongingness, so on and henceforth. So what we started introducing is Malaysia is a very multicultural, multiracial country, which is very helpful. We had a lot of festivals. So that was an anchor for us to ensure that every 6 weeks, we have some kind of event in place in person. And which kind of made the workplace not only a workplace to come, but also a place where people were able to get over their stress. So that was the piece and connection and engagement which we involved. So these activities, and then also introducing, I'm not sure there's this concept of, especially when you work with Gen Y and Gen Z, they're used to video games, and there's this concept of flow. So flow is when you get into a loop and you get involved and you get excited. So we were using that concept of psychology to say, how can we get people into a flow of coming to the office and enjoying it and looking forward to something. And you need to remember this has to be done in different pockets and different teams and put frequency around it. So there was a bit of work around that we did as a HR team to ensure that we are putting that flow. What it did for us is we were able to have more people back in office, not for the intent of we want to get 100% back, not at all, but so that they can collaborate better. Collaboration was critical because we work through an agile framework. And now I know agile is basically from a software industry, so it's very unique from an FMCG perspective. So we work through a grid format where we always have cross-functional teams. So even if HR is responsible for creating a best workplace to work, we run a grid which has members from, say, marketing, from supply chain, etc. So when we talk, so we need collaboration to happen. So our processes and systems, we were integrated with this flow approach of having very regular collaboration and actions. The second piece was the third piece was the individual connection. How do we encourage the line managers to have that? And as everybody is recognizing, I think they are the most stressed people. at this point of time. They need time. Everybody expects them to be a super person, man or woman, either ways. They get directions and KPIs from the senior management, and they have to manage the emotions of the team members. So they feeling supported was very critical. So how we created a sort of peer network group, which we call a business leadership team. So there are 40 people who are a business leadership team, and we ensure they have a monthly engagement and they have this collaborative project. And all this is organized in a way, it's not just organic. So it is organic, but we review it continuously and ensure the collaboration is going in a manner that all of them feel being a part of a larger organization, not sitting in their silos. So these are the few aspects we're trying to ensure.
Fantastic. So this whole concept of kind of organized collaboration that becomes, an organized connection is really important. I have a question for you from the group, Anjali, I think it is. This is from Faisal. He says, I think in Indonesia, the opposite of the Great Resignation that happens, the Great Voluntary Resignation, is what's going on. But I'm intrigued with the Wellbeing Initiative because that's what my company is initiating. So the question to you would be, how do you implement Employee Wellbeing Initiative, both physical and emotional, on multi-sites workplace with culturally diverse employees? So any commentary for Faisal?
So from the Employee Wellbeing Initiative, and I think it's very important to look at a loop of saying listening, you acting, listening, planning, acting, measure, and then again listening. So we kind of go into that loop more or less. So how do we do it in a multi-site workplace? And exactly that's what we are. We have we have more than 3 sites, multi-site. So we try to understand, first of all, the fact was about listening to the employees, what do they need? And then also listening what is happening in other organizations. There's a part of listening to the employees as part of benchmarking and understanding what's happening across. And we put those initiatives considering equity in place. That's why I was bringing this element of hardship. And there's also an element of saying what is possible. There's a job role people need to do, but there's a hardship associated. So you kind of compensate for it. So when we're doing the well-being initiative also, let's say a sales force, if you're talking about safety, for them it's the road safety. Yeah. But when we are saying of office-based population, it's ergonomics. So you have to be very discerning on what is the focus for different populations that you have, and if they're in different locations. So if you're in an area which is very flood prone, are you putting in practices or at least some kind of guidelines in place of how you support your employees there? So you need to understand through scanning external environment, plus you need to listen to the employee. That's the first piece, even if they're culturally diverse. And then when we put actions in place, how do we measure the success? The success can be, there are a few things. One is obviously the attrition rate, which is much easier lagging indicator. The other part is also employee engagement feedback. And we try to do more of a dipstick. And I think it's not unique. A lot of organizations do that. So when you put in an action in place, you do regular dipsticks. At least every 3 months, I would recommend, if not 2 months, immediately after the initiative is put in place. So every 3 months is a good time. And the success comes from these 2 critical factors, was the feedback from the employees. And there's other factor of productivity. So you need to measure the productivity and efficiency of the workforce as well. And that needs to happen every 6 months. So if there is organizational health assessment, which says there's flags and you see productivity flogging, it's a direct correlation. So yeah, these are the 3 things.
Fantastic, Anjali. And I'm hearing again, when you start to think about all of this, I'm hearing 2 key things around, measuring and listening are 2 of the things I'm really hearing here, and listening in particular ways that create belonging at work and also give that culture of caring that we're talking about. So, the importance of all of these things around what we do also jump into the whole concept of, what do we need to do around engagement that's different than what we've done before? How are we listening that's different than what we've done before? How do we create this, this regularity of listening that becomes part and parcel of the culture? Tianlong, we talk about the importance of intrinsic motivation and looking at the individual to help that intrinsic motivation. I was thinking, can't remember who said it from the group, but you were talking about, I think it might have been you, Tian, who talked about, if I don't listen and I don't understand and I don't show I care, I won't get that discretionary effort in future from my employee. And they've got options to go elsewhere, right? Because of where we're currently at. You want to talk to us a little bit about the importance of purpose, autonomy, mastery now in this new environment, about intrinsic motivation and what that means?
Yeah, I think for intrinsic motivation, I think it's always been there, right? It's just that in the last 3 years, through a lot of self-reflection of all the employees we have, it became more important. So, I mean, example of it is there was an employee of mine, from marketing girl. She was feeling that we weren't doing enough for sustainability. So I think she hounded my door and came to me and said, I need 30 minutes with you. So first thing I know is that an employee brings up the courage to come to me and say, there's something they want to talk to me about. And I gave her the 30 minutes, I think, tracked to 1 hour to share what she felt the company could do better about sustainability, because she's passionate. And FedEx, we do contribute quite a fair bit to the carbon emission, given that we fly a lot of planes. So it's good that the employee wanted to do a bit more. So I gave her that platform and then give some guidance, and actually became a very good project that the whole senior management team in Thailand was committed to do. And so that's on a specialist level. I think some of us know that we have employees that were essential workers that need to come in and work. And then we were very important about making sure the vaccines were were being delivered. So when we deliver critical goods, right, the employees knew that we were a bigger picture than just delivering packages. We were connecting products. And I think the best I can explain to this was last year during June or July, we had a big chemical explosion in Thailand. You can check it on the website. You can still see, I think, on YouTube, the massive explosion that was beside the airport. A lot of my employees needed to evacuate their home 5 km radius. What was the best is the managers, their leaders, and themselves, they just asked, are you going to take care of us at the end of the day? If you are going to take into consideration, we have a place to sleep, which I went out and take as many hotel rooms as possible for the entire week, because I'm not sure when they can return back to their house. And that's the commitment that you get, right? They knew that the packages were important. They knew the shipments were important. There may be something critical inside. So I think it's that in the value that we bring as a company of connecting when all passenger airlines were not flying. They knew how important our work was. And our side is to show them that we will take care of you, right? Our mission is that everything else is secondary. So connecting the packages were important. We will take care. So the whole week, I think I had about 50 employees staying in a hotel, or 40, for a few days, right? And then we had to find new clothes for them as well, right? So it's quite a number of things that we got to put into motion, but that gave them the sense of comfort that the company is there to help them.
And going back to that whole concept, is the company is there to help them, caring, but also around that whole concept of purpose. Why are you there and what are you there to do? Okay, now we've had conversations across the board, and we've heard themes like the need to focus on creating belonging at work, how we're pivoting away from business as usual, that we need to create a culture of caring. And we've talked a bit about intrinsic motivation. We've got a few minutes left to go. I'm going to ask 2 quick questions of each of the panel members in terms of a comment. Now, we've heard from one of the audience today. He said, what great resignation. That's not happening over here. So commentary, this importance of engaging and keeping and retaining our staff, this big focus now that we all have. What is your opinion? Is there an upside to the Great Resignation, or does the resignation even exist? I'm going to start with Priscilla. Over to you.
Yeah, I think we cannot control what happened that is already outside our control, but we can control how we respond to it. I think this is the time. Let's take this time as an opportunity to reflect and reshape our company's culture for the better, and listen to our employees' needs to create an even better working environment. and we can do by being a human-centered leaders that empower others.
So human-centered leadership is your message, Priscilla, which says,
Yeah.
you know what we need right now is human-centered leaders. We needed it before, we need it even more right now. That's your takeaway message for everyone. Fantastic. So Great Resignation. Is it there? Isn't it there? Tell me, what do you think?
In Indonesia or?
In Indonesia?
I think I agree with Mr. Faisal said in the chat box in the question and answer. In Indonesia, maybe the opposite of the Great Resignations, because in my company, the turnover rates actually lower this year. Yeah.
And why do you think that is? So I'm just going to ask you that question because you talked about all the great initiatives that you've been doing in the last couple of years and what you're doing. You know, do you think that's contributed?
What we talk about in this session, like human-centered leadership, the culture of caring, the leaders who wants to listen to their employees and take necessary action, and maybe the belonging of the employees at the works and the sense of meaning why they do what they do. It's the important things that makes people stay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Priscilla. Wonderful to hear your perspective. Over to Kiko. Tell me, what's your opinion? Is there an upside to the Great Resignation? Does it exist? Is it existing in the Philippines?
Well, I think that if you talk about leaving, I don't think that people are leaving. But I think people are thinking about what opportunities are available out there. So it's not necessarily that they're leaving organizations. It's just that the current situation has brought about opportunities for more and options for people, right? Because now they can work from home. They did not realize, probably compared to many years ago, that they can work from home, do everything at home, earn, take good care of their families, right? So they're looking for those options right now. And that's really challenging a lot of organizations today to improve their standards, the way they do things, adapt to the changing work environment, because that's contributing to potential, resignation from their employees. But if I were also to think about the current situation, we were looking at studying at our attrition scores or attrition percentages, and our attrition for this year is actually lower than last year. So I think it's because we have finally understood what our employees need. We finally understood what we need to do so that we can cope up with whatever that they need, while of course delivering positive business results.
Amazing, Kiko. And one of the things around that is, you know, understanding that all of those things really requires really good leadership, really good, and a different breed of leadership, which is the topic today. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your insights. Anjali, over to you. What's your opinion? Upside to the Great Resignation? Does the resignation exist, and what does it all mean?
I think what is happening is people are rethinking the priorities in life. With the COVID situation, that is what has happened. So that when they're rethinking their priorities, they are digging a bit more deeper in terms of what do they want. And that is what the leaders and organization needs to provide, is a sense of purpose. And it's very, very critical. So if you see this whole discussion of climate change and sustainability gaining a lot of head start and headspace everywhere, especially with the generation which is coming up, is because people are seeking a purpose. So I believe the upside of Great Resignation is the effort and intent to focus on the purpose of the organization, which we should be, I think for leaders and HR practitioners, it's a great opportunity, because that's where they can play a key role in setting the tone right. The other thing which is an upside of Great Resignation is an intent to put focus, because now that people are rethinking, they want to focus on what matters. So that's another opportunity for organizational leadership to bring focus and clarity in their value proposition. So when you are approaching, give people clarity and focus so that they can contribute and make the best out of their time. People want to prioritize their personal life. People want to prioritize and do other things in their life, and their time is valuable. So please provide focus and clarity. So I think purpose, focus, and clarity is the upside I see with the Great Resignation. Is it happening? I think between Q4 last year until about middle of this year, there was certainly a spike about in 3 quarters, which one has seen externally in our own organization, but it started slowing down. So yeah, maybe we were too soon to call it a Great Resignation. This is a tendency. Now there's quite quick quitting. So often we tend to go with jargons, but yes, there was a wave of it, but it didn't last too long. So we are, it's streamlining. That's my view.
Fantastic, and thank you, Anjali. We can probably do a whole another webinar on quiet quitting as well,
Yes.
which is the new trend that we're seeing in the HR world more broadly, or in the workplace, actually, not in the HR world, in the broader world more widely. So thank you so much for your insights. Last but definitely not least, Tian Long, your views. What is your opinion? Is there an upside to the Great Resignation, and what is it?
Yeah, I think we look at the trajectory. So I think in Thailand, we did see, because the boom of the tourism, so there are a lot of people that, a lot of jobs left vacant when the tourism sector took a hit. And then suddenly there's a lot of jobs made available. Definitely there's a change. I think goes with the self-reflection. I actually had some employees who left to go back to the countryside to be with their parents or be with their family, right? So that's not about salary, that's about change in life priorities, right? So a lot comes into play, and then it's a good opportunity to really, reflect what does the future workforce look like, and how do we equip, and how do we hire, and how do we retain? So I think the whole process of employee engagement and employee journey with the company is something that we really rethink given the current circumstances. It's not about now, and so the next 5 years, what will be relevant, right? So I think we can throw all the plans prior to 2019 out the door. Whatever we deliver now is a whole new world. So that's the take. So it's good, it forces us all to rethink our strategies when it comes to keeping our employee engaged.
Amazing, and thank you so much, Tian Long. A really good segue into kind of summarising our discussion today, and what a fantastic panel we've had from across Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia and Thailand. I just want to call out the audience today has been from the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, India, Korea, and me from Australia here as your host. And what a fantastic conversation where we've talked about what leaders can do now and what leaders have to do that's different to what they did previously. So key takeaways, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion with these fantastic leaders from across the world. Theme 1, focus on creating belonging at work. The importance now of really thinking about inclusion in the workplace and how you create belonging, not just for your employees, but for leaders to be able to do what they need to do. The whole pivot away from business as usual, really throwing out, I think Tian Long, you said that, throw out everything we did from 2019 and earlier, and really think about what we need to do around targets and standards that are different, and what are we measuring and how often are we measuring it as well. And looking at the lives of our teams and how we offer support requires, and listening requires, a different sort of leader that before you might have needed it, 70%, now we need it 100%, not just to drive performance, but to keep people in the workplace and stop the quiet quitting. Another theme today was creating a culture of caring and a real focus on that. The kind of leader people and companies want to be associated with becomes even more important. And really looking at, the whole idea of purpose. Thank you, everybody. We do hope that you have enjoyed the webinar today. A big thank you from me, from all of our panel, and a big thank you and virtual round of applause for our panel today on a great discussion. Thanks, everybody.